There are numerous stories about people who have seen or been visited by a group called the Men in Black. Are these accounts true? And where did it all begin? Let's find out in this episode of the Faith and Mystery Files. We'll begin with the oldest written account of the Men in Black. The first record of a visit from this group was on June 21st, 1947. That day, a man named Harold Dahl, his 15-year-old son Charles, and their family's dog went through a strange experience. Harold ran a commercial lumber company in Tacoma, Washington. On that Saturday, he brought his son and dog along to help gather wood on Maury Island, which was near his company. As they gathered wood, both Harold and his son saw 6 objects hovering in the sky above them. He then took photos and noted that they were similar in shape to donuts, with a small shuttle or room connected in the middle. These objects began throwing out or unloading mysterious metallic pieces. Some of this debris ended up cutting or bruising Charles's arm and supposedly killed the family dog. Once the flying objects left, he and his son were in shock. They checked on the dog, gathered their things, and left. That same day, Harold went to see his friend and employee, Fred Chrisman. Harold showed Chrisman a few of the photos he had taken. Chrisman, still not entirely convinced, decided to go look at the area himself. It is there that he too saw a similar flying object. Chrisman, however, took a few of the metal pieces that were dropped. Early the next day, Harold was visited by a man dressed in a black suit. The man wanted to speak with Harold about what he saw, so they went to a popular diner in town. There, the man told him all the events that Harold had seen the day before, without Harold having spoken or told him anything. Harold was stunned, but more so when the man advised him to keep quiet about what he and his son had witnessed. The man told Dahl that if he continued to talk with others about what happened, that Harold and his family would be in danger. After that, the man left, and the pictures Dahl had taken seemed to vanish. About a month and a half later, in August 1947, the Dahl family left Washington and seemingly faded into the background. Then we have another account of a Men in Black encounter. The story of Albert K. Bender. Albert was born on June 16, 1921, in Pennsylvania. By the time he was 21, he had served for over 1 year in the U.S. Army as a dental technician. He was given an honorable discharge from Langley Field, Virginia on October 7, 1943. Soon after, he moved with his mother and stepfather to Bridgeport, Connecticut. There he became employed as a timekeeper for Acme Shear Company. One thing Albert enjoyed studying was unexplained mysteries, including those of flying saucer sightings. Because of his collection of oddities and the research he put into studying UFOs, Albert decided to start an organization called the International Flying Saucer Bureau. It was officially formed in 1952 and consisted of about 600 members. They even created a newsletter called the Space Review, which was sent to members worldwide. A few weeks after his organization was up and running, strange things began to happen to Albert. He received odd phone calls, became ill frequently, and noticed an increase in UFO sightings around Connecticut. The more research he did, the more problems he encountered. At one point, he tried to telepathically contact aliens. The message he told others he sent was written within articles the next day. This did not turn out well for him. A few months after his telepathic message story was featured in the newspaper, Albert stated that 3 men visited his home. The men were dressed in all black. He stated that they looked like clergymen, but wore hats similar to Homburg style. These men talked with Albert, and sternly, yet clearly, informed him that he needed to stop all of his UFO work completely. It is said that they took all the copies of the newest Space Review newsletters, before the newsletters had even been sent out, and together, vanished in a yellow mist, leaving behind a scent of sulfur. Albert Bender shut down the Bureau a few days afterwards, and only released one more issue of the Space Review newsletter later in October of that year. In it, he left the following message: "We advise those engaged in saucer work to be very cautious." One of the members of the Bureau, whose name was Gary Barker, wrote a book in which he talked about Albert's experiences. It was in this book that the term "the Men in Black" first originated. The last true account we'll look into is the case about the photo taken by Jim Templeton, entitled "The Soulway Spaceman." On May 23, 1964, firefighter Jim Templeton took his wife, Annie, and their two daughters, Frances and Elizabeth, for a family outing. That Saturday afternoon, Jim wanted to take a few family photos in the sunny weather, as the girls had just gotten new dresses. After his daughters picked flowers and they all finished walking around, the family headed back to the town they lived in, Carlisle. Once the Kodak camera film was full, he took it to get developed. When the photos were ready, Jim went to the shop and picked them up. As the associate was ringing him up, she said that the photos were very lovely family photographs, but there was one photo that didn't make sense. The associate asked who the person in the background of Elizabeth's portrait was. Confused, Jim opened up the packaged photos to find the one the associate was talking about, and when he saw it, he was stunned. He told the associate that no one had been there that day, other than his family. Concerned, Jim took the photo to the police in his town. They looked over the photograph and told him that nothing was wrong with it. There wasn't much they could do for him. A local news team heard about the photograph and asked him if they could print his story. From there, the story gained attention quickly. So much so that Kodak offered a reward to anyone who could prove that the photograph was fake. But no one could. That point on, Jim Templeton's photo was being shown all across the world. He received letters from many places throughout the world, some claiming that he and his daughter had special powers, while others were trying to give them advice or information as to what it was. However, the strangest incident that occurred as a result of the photo was who visited Jim. A few days after the photo became famous, two men came to his home. These men were dressed in black suits and referred to their names as number 9 and number 11. They talked with him. The men asked questions, such as what the family had been doing that day, and the exact location of where the photo had been taken. After arriving to the location, the men asked him what the figure in the photo actually looked like. However, when Jim told them that he had never physically seen anything behind his daughter that day, the men became angry and walked out towards the field. Jim never saw them again. All of these accounts deal with people being visited by the men in black after learning about or seeing strange things happen. These true accounts deal with men that saw something related to possible aliens. But others have stated stories dealing with being visited by the men in black after witnessing or learning more about governmental secrets or unclassified research. Then again, there are those that believe that many or all of the accounts are false. So let's take a closer look at the true stories we've talked about. We will start with Harold A. Dahl. It is stated that both Harold Dahl and Fred Chrisman contacted a Chicago magazine to sell their story. The editor of the magazine, Ray Palmer, told them he would publish their story if evidence could back it up. Palmer contacted Kenneth Arnold, an aviator who had previously asked the Army to look into other strange accounts. The Army intelligence sent 2 specialists to investigate the situation. But before these men could report back, the plane mysteriously caught fire and crashed, making many believe that the evidence on board was also destroyed. An article was soon published in the Tacoma Times about Dahl's and Chrisman's story, as well as including the plane crash incident. This, as well as the attention it received, sparked an FBI investigation. It is said that both Dahl and Chrisman recanted their stories, yet no real explanation was ever given why. The Dahl family, in fact, left Tacoma, Washington shortly after. However, years later, Charles Dahl, the son of Harold Dahl, was reported to have said that the entire account was false. Charles said that he was never hurt, that there were no flying saucers, and that Crisman was behind the whole thing. A man and wife research team by the names of Kalani and Katiuska Hanohano were able to find Charles Dahl and speak to him about the story. Charles spoke very little about it, stating that Crisman was a con artist and had involved his father in the hoax to receive fame. Charles was never taken to a hospital and never had any related injuries. Charles passed away a little while after the interview, but Charles's sister, Louise Bakotich, firmly stated that her brother was not injured at all on the day they returned. She even said that the family's dog had passed away prior to the supposed incident. Then we have the case of Albert K. Bender. Based on the experiments he did, it is possible that he was sadly doing evil work without realizing it. Did he see UFOs, or was he working in dark matters? There is a differentiation in the way he saw the men in black when compared with the other stories. These men disappeared in a yellow mist. However, maybe his work was going too far or out of control. It's important to note there were articles in which stated that one of the reasons he started looking more into these men and UFOs was because they seemed to be everywhere, or more frequently seen where he lived. In the case of the Soulway Spaceman, there are skeptics that say the photo is a blurred image of Jim Templeton's wife, Annie. However, Annie Templeton was wearing a light blue dress. She also didn't wear a hat that day. The figure seen has a white outfit on, with a clear or plastic-like cover around the hat on the head. She would not have worn long sleeves in the nice warm weather. One more thing to note is that something seems to be slightly protruding from the middle of the figure's back and goes lower on the left side. Some suggest that it could be a modern or futuristic type of spacesuit. Also, another fact to mention is that a few days after the photograph went worldwide, 2 Australian technicians contacted Jim Templeton. They stated that as they were working on preparing a test missile launch, they saw 2 or 3 men with similar spacesuits to the possible one that was seen in the photo behind Elizabeth. Strangely enough, the missile team ended up halting and completely stopping the missile test. It was also learned that the missile they were going to launch came from the Royal Air Force Base that was a few miles from the place where the photos had been taken. Why did the men in black visit Jim Templeton that day? Why did they want to see the exact location Jim had taken the picture? What did the men in black know? There are countless stories depicting the men in black who have visited people whom have seen, researched, and encountered strange and unexplainable things. What is the reason? Are they good, keeping others from danger? Or are these men employed to ensure that secrets remain silent? What do you think? Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Faith and Mystery Files. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this intriguing episode about the Men in Black and want to hear more about this topic, let us know. We may do a part 2 if you're interested to learn more. Also, check out our previous episodes to listen to other fascinating mysteries. Thank you again, and may God bless you.